G'day everybody, I'm Marty. I run a company called Orb Services and I want to help you live a better life because you run a better business. Now, today I want to talk about automation, which is a really exciting opportunity for a lot of business owners, but it's also really daunting, really overwhelming, and a heap of people are making an absolute meal of it. So it's really easy to have this nice idea. We think, yeah, I'm going to automate everything. It's going to be this nice shiny wheel and it's going to work together, right? But then when you get into the rabbit hole a little bit, you're like, holy McMoly, there is so many things in here that it could be, would be, this software, that software. What else do I do? Is it internal? Is it external? How does that all work together? And before you actually get to start to build this nice machine, all of it, and this nice shiny carpet ride, you end up in the drink. And it causes people a lot of frustration. And when they get there, the default is to revert back to bugger it. We'll just go back to how we used to do it before. And that's not really the thing that we want. So hopefully I'm going to give you some information here that'll help you get back on that magic shiny carpet ride where you can automate things, get some time back in your life, have a good time, and be excited about the technology that you've taken advantage of. So the three big problems that people hit when they start to do automation is lack of definition. They do not decide, and it's like we're putting the cart before the horse where we haven't got definition. So I'm going to give you a model around how I do that and what I do with customers to make that work. They're using way too many platforms or they're just starting too big. When you start an automation, it's going to be 1,000 small automations. Automating your business is a horrendous term that I hate because automating your business is a series of 1,000 small automations. And then even if you do that and you have all this magical stuff, you still have to manage it and implement it and make sure that it's actually working. So I'm going to run through these three things. But before I do, we're going to take a step back and look at, well, what is automation? And it very simply, the simplest way that I thought I can describe it is that it is a trigger and an outcome. This action happens and then this happens, right? Now, that seems normal, right? But in business and through a customer journey, there's 1,000 or maybe 100 of those, right? You might have 100 triggers, say customer agrees, they sign to do your job, right? Okay, so that's a trigger. Well, then the next thing that has to happen as the next stage is you have to have a date to do that, right? But in order to have the date, maybe you need to make a phone call or maybe you need to send them a calendar. And then, so if you take that example and you go, okay, well, they have agreed, and the trigger is that they have agreed to do the work. Now we have to find a time to do the work. Well, first variable is, do you do that via face-to-face or like in person? Do you pick up the phone and book a time and run them through things? Do you send them a calendar link? And then there's another variable off the back of that. We go, well, if you send them a calendar link, that's nice. If they book in, great. But what if they don't? So can get complicated quickly. So one of the things to be mindful of is just thinking about what are the three types of process that you're using. And you have access to all three of these all of the time. You've got 1, 2, 3, which is Henry Ford, first process ever made. It's always the same. You do the same thing over and over and over, and then there's no variables in it, right? That doesn't work for a lot of businesses because we all provide service and we all provide variable. And we all provide this customization that that creates variables. So what we did is we got a bit smarter and we said, okay, well, we'll put variables in there. If you want a red car, then we can put red paint on it. If this, and that type of system will work great if there is only a limited number of variables. But if you build a house or if you have, for free, like let's say take your variables, you can have the location, the staff member that it's in, and the type of work that they're doing, right? There's 3 variables. And if those 3 variables all have 3 options or 5 options each, then now you've got like 5 times 5 times 5 is 125, right? So you've got 125 variables that you're trying to play with there. That's pretty complicated to try and work through. So the more advanced styles we go to, okay, what is an outcome base? The outcome that we're looking for is they've booked a job, we found a time to do it, and it's booked into our calendar and their calendar, and we're good to go. Right. So they're the 3 different types of processes. So in your business, you're going to have all 3 of those. This is the process model that I use, or the business structure model that I use to run through this, right? So you have your core business in the middle, and that's what I want to focus on because that's what you're going to try and automate. On the front end of your core business over here, you usually have a sales conversion, which might be inbound where somebody picks up the phone and says, hey, I need you to do this particular work. Okay, cool. Well, before they actually commit, this point here is when they have committed to doing the job. So before they commit to doing the job, maybe they have a conversation or maybe they book in online. That's sales. And before they do that, they need to know who you are and how to find you and actually find you. That's marketing, right? Those things are supporting resources. They're not your core business. They're things that are important to your business. They're essential to your business, absolutely, but they're not your core business. They're not what pays the bills, right? So if we draw this out in a little bit of a sense, you go, okay, well, we've got marketing activity, helps people know who we are. We've got sales, gets people booked in and actually books the job. And then we get into our core business, right? Yellow, yellow, blue, blue, yellow pieces, blue pieces, right? That's how this works. So this is an example I just put here, but once you start to blow this out, this is an old one from my business. You can zoom in on it and try and read it. It's not a big secret, but basically my 4 delivery stages are: we're going to understand and present a solution, which is finding out and confirming what's going on here. Then we've got to plan and complete the scope. Then we've got to execute the scope of work. Then we've got to provide ongoing support on the back of that. And as you can see, it breaks out into lots of variables. Your business is going to do the same thing. So first problem people face is lack of definition. Yeah. This is a huge problem. And I say to people all the time, if you can't draw it, you can't automate it. Yeah. And the problem is, if you draw it like this, it's probably overwhelming, right? I do this for a living and it makes sense to me. And by nature, I find this easy, right? I know that this is not everybody's bag of chips because people pay me to do it for them, right? If this is overwhelming and big to you, which it is in a lot of cases, start small. So start within a component. Go, okay, when we're doing the sale, when we're doing the onboarding, when we're doing the service delivery, what is a really small component of that? If we go back to this slide here, what is a really small component of that? And what can I do within that component? And if you can just start on that, then you're okay, well, that works. And then you go to the next section. It's hard to, especially when you know all of the information about your business that you know, it's hard to zoom out and get that perspective if you're really close to it and you're working in it all the time. So lack of definition is the number one problem, because people try and build something like this. It gets overwhelming. They don't do it. They go, oh, cool, I'll go through the automation anyway. Then they get into the automation. They realize that the lack of automation is not giving them a roadmap of what they're trying to do. Then the automation falls apart and then they just go back to how they're doing it again, right? So define what you're trying to do and start small. If it's big and it's overwhelming, that's cool. That's perfectly normal. Don't sweat that. Start small and just think, how can you automate a small piece of it, right? Next thing to do is we have software challenges, right? And when you automate things, you can automate things in a sense of like either within a software or between 2 softwares, right? So, and I've got some examples at the end where I'm basically just going to give you like a chunk of options. But you go, within your business, are you trying to automate information and a trigger and an action, creating things within your business, or are you within a singular platform, or are you trying to automate and create that to happen between 2 platforms? Right? Because that can, the variable there is they can then integrate natively. So your CRM might integrate with your project management natively, right? Or your job management tool natively. If they don't, then they'll recommend a third party like Zapier or something like that. Now, those things, that all of those options are fine. There's nothing wrong with any of them, right? But the easiest way for you to start, if this is where you're starting from ground zero, the easiest way to start is to look for the automation opportunities within a singular piece of software. So as a customer goes through this journey and they understand they're starting to, like, there's marketing activity. So they may be either following you, that was horrible. They're either following you on social media, or maybe they've subscribed to a mailing list and they're now in your marketing software, but somehow they know about you and they're in contact with you. Your marketing software and your CRM can be the same thing. You've got things like ActiveCampaign and HubSpot and a few others, but they can be the same thing or they can be separate. Yeah. Depends. Not going down that rabbit hole, but they can be the same thing, same piece of software with different functionality within the same software, or they can be different softwares, right? So it just depends on your business and what you need. Maybe you don't have this, maybe you don't have this, doesn't matter. Because automation for you might be just all happening up here where you're using your job management all the way through here, right? So mapping out and understanding what software you have, the 5 big ones or the 4 big ones are your accounting, your CRM, Sorry, accounting, marketing, CRM, document storage, and job management. Yeah. They're the big ones that everybody sort of has or needs, or as you start to grow, they're the first five sort of thing. You might have things like Slack, you might have things like Canva, you will have other bits and pieces, but in terms of actually facilitating a customer experience, your big five are going to be document management and your document storage, which everybody needs. Then you're going to need an accounting software. Then you're going to need some form of marketing, CRM. Maybe they're the same software, but it's different functionalities. And then you've got some kind of job management. So mapping out where they sit and what opportunities you have within those will help drive which part of this you want to focus on. So you might want to decide, okay, well, we've got opportunities. The bottleneck and the pain point in your business might be when you're delivering work. So the automation and the opportunities that you're going to look for there is within your job management and how you deliver work. So you go, okay, well, how does that structure work? You define what that little piece looks like. And then in here, you go, okay, what automation and what opportunities can happen within our job management software? Not from your job management software to your CRM or your CRM, just within that. And start with that, because that's going to be the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest place for you to get a win. So wrapping up, using too many platforms. Start small. Again, don't use too many platforms. Trim what you can. Start in a single platform, build your native ones, and introduce third parties if you need to. Most job management and accounting softwares link natively. They don't need a third party like Zapier. So if you are using a job management and it's not linking to your accounting software, you do the job and then you have to do a summary and export that and put that into your accounting software. That's a really easy one that there's like so many options for how that can work and how that can do better. It's different for every business, but that's really common. And if you're still having to manually invoice things after the completion of a job, you're probably missing an opportunity there. This is the last piece. You don't just build this like anything in your business. You don't just build it and implement it and then you go off and sit in the sunset, right? It doesn't work like that. You still have to monitor it, still have to make sure it's working, still have to evolve it. So simple things. Don't sleep on it. All right. That's my takeaway. You can't put it in and then sleep on it because certain things will change. Maybe you've got an email in there that comes from a certain person and then that person leaves your organization. So you've got to go and update that email. Maybe you've got an email in there that is not getting any traction because it's coming from a generic address and you want to change that to a personalized address so that it comes from you as the owner. Or maybe there's challenges within the accounting, within your inventory and your job management and your inventory. It's not working back and forth. So you've got to go and update and work on that, right? It's never, people have this false sense of like what automation is. And it's like they just set it up and then it works forever and you never have to do it. And yes, it's going to save you a chunk of time. And yes, it's going to work like that. And yes, it is something that you should look to, but it's not a set and forget and never ever look at it again. So don't forget, you still got to look after it. What I've got here is a bunch of options. On the left-hand side, I've got the different platforms that you would use and the different software solutions that you might be using in your business. And then I've got some native options as automation opportunities that you have natively within any given platform. And this will vary depending on the specific one, but just these are like 101 examples, right? And then I've got some cross-platform opportunities. So where the trigger could be, if we go back to what is automation, we're talking about a trigger and an action, right? So this is triggers and actions internally, triggers and actions within the same platform, triggers and actions across a different platform. So somebody subscribes because you've got a form on your website, that's then sends them a series of emails as a welcome email, right? In a cross-platform, somebody clicks or visit their sites. You, as an external away from that, get an email notification, or they complete a form, and because they completed this particular form, it creates a record for them in your accounting software, which can also happen, right? So there's a bunch of like 101 options there, but the concept is to just help you think about the variables that you have here, which are what's the software platform that you're using? Are you trying to do a native integration, or are you trying to do a cross-platform integration? And how do you build that as a sequence of triggers and actions? Because it's basically trigger, action. Well, now that action can be the next trigger. Then you have action. And then that action can be the next trigger. And then you have action. So it becomes, I don't know what happened then. It becomes a complex thing. So keep it simple, start small, and start within a platform and doing it natively. And the absolute thing that you have to do is, if you cannot draw it, you cannot automate it. So know what you're trying to do, know what your triggers action are, and stick with it, make small improvements, and I'm sure that you'll find a heap of wins with it. Good luck, and reach out if you have any dramas.